Thanks everyone for joining us here today for this session on rethinking research and different ways that you can get real-time insights to build trust with your audience. Got a couple latecomers, sorry. All right, so we'll do some quick intros for those of you that haven't met me. I'm Marianne Kaiser, and I'm the founder of Contrary Collective. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years doing pharmaceutical marketing and media across different regulated industries. And so excited today to be partnering with Neil and his team from Panoplai. We've been working together for about 2 years. And I just love the research insights and abilities that they have to do things differently in a way I've never seen before in the 20 years I've been in the industry. So I'll turn it over to Neil to introduce himself as well to everyone.
Great. Thank you very much, Marianne. Just sound check. Can everyone hear me okay? Or someone give me a thumbs up? Cool. Thank you. We also love working with Marianne. We've been working together for the last 2 or 3 years, and she's one of our favorite people. So thank you for helping us put this together today and having us on to this great webinar. Really quick, my background, just before we get into what our platform is, my background is 20 plus years in the world of research technology. In previous lives, I've led organizations building survey tools, reporting dashboards, research teams, analytics platforms, and so on and so on. And we launched Panoplai about 4 years ago, and we're excited to talk to you about some of the capabilities today. But before we do that, I want to hand it off to Lisa and Grace, who are also going to say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Hancock. I'm the COO here at Panoplai. I've been with Neil just about since the beginning of the company. So it's been a great ride so far. I too, a lot of people with 20 years experience on this call. I've spent about 20 years in data operations, helping brands build the gap, bridge the gap between tech, insights, and growth at companies like Kantar and Lucid. And here at Panoplai, I really focus on helping our clients get the most out of their data and out of their research investments. And I'll just turn it over to Grace for a quick intro.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grace. I'm the marketing manager at Panoplai, and I'll be manning the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in there, and we'll cover it during the Q&A portion at the end.
Great. Thank you.
All right. And so, Neil, if you want to share a little bit more about Panoplai and the platform specifically.
Yeah, thank you. So, as I mentioned, we launched about 4 years ago. And essentially, what our platform is, it allows whether you're a brand, whether you're a marketer, whether you're an agency, to be able to use our platform at every step of the research and increasingly the innovation cycle. What does that mean, right? So everything from being able to ideate new ideas, right? Take an idea or take a business problem you're looking to solve. It'll go and create a survey for you. It'll help you identify. You can write this. It'll write the survey for you. It'll program it for you in our platform. And we'll show you some examples of that later on. It also will find people, real human beings, to take the survey for you based on the audience criteria you have. So one of the examples we'll show you, of course, we can go out to general population, but we can go out increasingly to people who are certain ailment sufferers, who might suffer from diabetes or from different forms of other diseases, or even in the healthcare profession, we have access to be able to get professional physicians or specialists, right? So we have access to over 300 million people who are vetted globally around the world. Okay, so they can take the surveys. We can get, for general consumer, we can get 1,000 people answering in an hour. So very, very quick. Now, on the back end of that real data that we collect, of course, we can analyze the data. right? So we can analyze data sets that are programmed in our platform very easily. Click a button, it analyzes the entire data set for you, and it can give you recommendations on what to do with it to help you make decisions. You also have the ability to bring in your own data sets. So if you have surveys or other types of data that you collected elsewhere, right, other survey platforms, social media data, behavioral data sets, you can put it into our system and you can combine it with your survey data, right? And you can have it be analyzed across data sets to find commonalities or key differences amongst your target audiences, right? You can also decide to overlay that with additional, types of information. So like competitive analysis reports or just other reports, right? Into one common data repository that sits in our platform, and you can query that. And on the back end of that, we can activate it essentially and turn it into digital twins, right? So based on who your customer might be, you can say, you know what, let's use this foundational aspect of all this data that I've put into this platform, and let's turn it into real, into a virtual version of my customer, and let's ask it questions about what the information is in the platform, but then also, probabilistically, it can infer what people might do in certain situations or how it might react to a certain concept or idea, and so on and so on. All right, so a lot you can do on our platform, but I'm going to stop there because I'm going to show you some demonstrations a bit later on. I'm going to hand it off to Marianne to talk about our partnership.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so what Neil's talking about is what we really love from a communication standpoint when we're helping our clients figure out how they want to talk to their customer. We take all of that data, all those insights, and we like to turn it into meaningful communications for your customer. So it could be at various different scale, could be on social media. And what's really nice about this platform is we can test those small changes across audiences where they're going to be showing up and really come up with something that's going to move your audience even further and faster. And so while some of it goes with human instinct, right? When we're creating materials, it's things that feel good. We like to back that with data of how your customers are actually showing up, which is why it's nice that you can plug in zero-party data from your websites or even your banner ads, different ad campaigns that you're running to see how it's all coming to life. So that's how our skills really overlap here. And so today we'll take you through a little bit of how research is being transformed now, what that AI and human synergy can look like within who you're testing to and how you're augmenting that data. We'll do the live demo that Neil was just talking about, which I think everyone will really enjoy. We, used a real survey there to get it. And then what we can do with that data application. So looking forward, if you run a survey like this in the future, what do you do afterwards with it? And then we'll get into a Q&A. So looking at, the traditional barriers to research. And I think most people on this call, if you've done any research for yourself or for a client in the past, you've experienced at least one of these things. So there's the privacy and compliance aspect. We want to make sure that we're getting data in a way that the people who are answering the questions are comfortable sharing, because if they're not comfortable sharing their utmost truth, it won't be helpful to us, right? We really need to know what is getting them bogged down in a process or even a treatment that they might have. Then that combined with the cost of entry. So, for basic market research in the medical space, it can start at $75,000 because you're having to go different places, book specialists, get rooms with them for an hour a day and ask them a ton of questions and dig into this, where this platform can do it all digitally. Then again, access to those specialists. So how are you going to find the right people and get them engaged and willing to give you the time that you need? So those recruitment barriers can be rather difficult. And then siloed data. So if you're reaching out to an outside market research company and they're doing data for you, how can you cross-pollinate those data sets so you really understand what patients think they're doing or your audience thinks they're doing versus how they're really showing up and engaging either with your advertisements, your website, or even the treatment itself. And then, the longer we've been doing this, the faster things get with digital adoption. We used to send out print, what they called business reply cards, and you would see if people were reading your materials. Now, within, it can be up to minutes. People are responding to social ads online. They're resharing things. Banner ads we're getting results on. And so in order to keep up with all of that, updated data and the way the world is working, we need to also fix our pacing from a market research standpoint so we can keep up with the market. And we know what the cost of getting creative wrong can be. So if you have misaligned messages or patients don't really understand some of the barriers that are going to come their way, it can slow down adoption and decrease sales. So you really want to make sure that the messaging is aligned with the needs of your customer. Those internal slowdowns, if you can't get the data out of your market research in time, or you don't even have the data that you need, it's hard to justify that sometimes to higher ups. You really want to make sure that you have everything you need to sell in that campaign, if it's a large one, to get things moving. And then the wasted media spend. If you push something out into the market, you want to make sure that the campaign is effective as it can be, so it doesn't burn through the marketing budget for those ad placements, turning into essentially poor ROI. And then there are times when if you don't hit the right tone, you lose trust. And that can damage the brand credibility long-term and those customer relationships. I feel like we've seen quite a bit of this in recent marketing history. So really want to make sure that you're building trust with your audience, and vetting those messages prior to going live.
All right, so let's start by taking a look at what modern research actually looks like today. First, we know it's all about the rapid testing cycle, like Marianne just talked about. Instead of waiting months, we can test tone, messaging, concepts in just a few hours or days instead of weeks or months. Secondly, research has to deliver nuanced insights across hard to reach audiences. And those are some of the audiences that Neil just mentioned as well, that can be really difficult to find and to get back in touch with as well. So this is where things like digital twins and synthetic data come in. They let us model, understand, and even predict and simulate behavior. Third, it's about layered data insights, combining your first-party opinion data. Again, Marianne mentioned zero-party data as well, whether it's collected in our platform, on your website, or it's sitting in a drive somewhere. External studies, files, reports, competitive information, FAQs, any type of document that gives you some information can be uploaded into our platform and can give you a panoramic, complete, and nuanced view, and not just one snapshot in time. So this allows you to be more forward-looking. And then finally, modern research needs to be accessible. There's a lot of flexible options here, so insights aren't just reserved for the biggest players anymore. So with these pillars in mind, let's take a look at how Panoplai brings this all together. Starts with surveys, giving you access to 300 million plus people in real time across 100 countries. We are the human data engine powering every single insight. Next is data ingestion. We make it simple to bring your surveys, your customer data, and even external data sets and unify it into all one connected platform. And then third, we can add synthetic data. This is where synthetic data helps to fill the gaps. It can expand your insights beyond just existing survey responses. Fourth, digital twin creation. Using your data, we generate digital twins grounded in first-party data. These let you test ideas, validate insights, and explore scenarios quickly and at scale without having to wait months. And finally, it all comes together in analysis and reporting. Our built-in reporting engine takes everything we just mentioned, survey data, ingested data sets, digital twin interactions, and transforms it into clear, actionable answers your team can actually use. So now I'm going to turn it over to Neil, who's going to go into the dashboard so we can take a look at all these different benefits.
Cool, thank you. I'm going to try sharing my screen. And I apologize in advance because I never use Microsoft Teams. So you guys are going to have to just essentially.
I will also share that the first time I saw this dashboard, I thought it was so cool. And so I asked to see a bunch of things a couple times. So definitely drop questions that you have into the chat as we're going through this. And Grace can let us know if there's anything we need to go back on. Also, Neil, you're sharing the team screen. There you go.
I know. That's why I apologize in advance for not being familiar with Microsoft Teams and some of the, the easier ways of using it, I'm sure. But I promise you, I am a technologist. So here is our platform. So if I click on login here, you can see that obviously there's a lot going on here, right? So I have the ability to essentially, these are all my studies I have here. I can decide to upload files, as we talked about before. Of course, we can decide to view all of our studies. I can decide to create a new study. I can also upload data itself, and then I'll get into the chat with data in a few minutes as well. Okay, so if I click on new study, all right, this brings me to being able to create a blank study. I can also decide to create one with AI. Why don't we do that? Okay, I'll click on create with AI. And what that happens here is that I actually have already pre-populated this. This tells me I essentially have given it, essentially some instructions on what I want to create. Okay, so it's going to be a patient-centered research study. The study is going to explore how people interpret and respond to different styles of healthcare messaging. We're looking at beyond the facts, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see I typed in a whole bunch of stuff here, right? And I want my target population to be general population in this case. And I want to generate, I can have it generate from anywhere from 1 question to 20 questions. So for now, just in terms of simplicity, why don't we create 5 questions? So you can see what this is doing is it's automatically creating 5 questions for me based on this description, as well as the target audience, as well as any type of tags I've entered in here automatically for me. Okay, so for each one, I can decide to modify it. I can decide to approve it. I can decide to add more one at a time. Maybe I want to add an open-ended question here. All right, so you just, so that really, really simplifies is the aspect of bringing in survey questions and having them be written for you in a way that is actually methodologically sound. Okay. And again, this is not just having GPT run questions for you. This is actually taken tried and tested true methodologies that we've been spending 20 years developing and automating those for you. Okay. So from there, let's go into our actual study. Okay, so this is about a 20-question study that we pre-programmed ahead of time. You can see it, patient-centered communication research. Okay, about 20 questions. And of course, we have all these different question types, single select, multi-select, open-ends, grids, ranking questions, we can have it create a concept test for us. There's a lot you can do here, right? I also have this brand new area of the tool, which has not been rolled out to production yet, but we're just in the final stages of rolling this out. And this is essentially an agent. All right. So what this really allows us to do is rather than clicking at these questions one at a time and entering them in, I can actually decide to say, you know what, let's just create an NPS question, a concept test, scale question, all these, launch the study automatically to a target audience, or I could even type something in and say, you know what, let's create a concept test with 3 new concepts. Each respondent will see 2, and then as I enter that in, that would automatically create the concept test for me, so you don't have to worry about clicking different buttons and everything. It really, really speeds things up. We're really excited about that getting rolled out. All right. At that point, I can decide that I want to launch my study. Okay, so I'm just going to click on launch, and you can see we have the ability to go to a new audience. All right, you can see we already launched one particular audience to general population, or I can decide to do an AI augment as well. An AI augment is the ability to essentially do a virtual recontact of synthetic audience members, and having them take part in the survey. We'll get into that a little bit too. All right. Again, I also realize I'm moving at lightning speed here, but I'm just trying to get to showing you guys a really quick preview of all the different, some of the cool things in our platform. All right, so we launched our study. We went out to 100 people across the United States. These are just Gen Pop people right now, right? 20 questions. So let's take a quick look as to who they are. So you can see that for every person who takes our study, we know all this information about them. Everything from age, gender, region, income, ethnicity, right? What's their sexual orientation, what ailments they might have. All these different things are automatically brought into every survey that's run through our platform. Okay, and then of course I can view just basic results. And when seeking healthcare support, what type of professionals do you seek? Again, you can see here, like clinics, doctors, of course, hospitals, specialists, and then I can decide to even slice and dice how different types of people feel, answer different questions. So I can decide to add in, let's say, a cut by gender. And you can see, very simply, how males differ from females. In this case, it looks to be pretty similar. All right. And then you can do a lot of analysis here. You can decide to filter it down to those who are only, younger, under the age of, call it, 44 years old, and you can see everything update dynamically. All right. So now we're filtering down to 36 people, those who are under the age of 35 years old. Okay, so let's get into some interesting things. Okay, so here's a question about, first they ask, how often do you feel that your healthcare provider really listens to you? You of course see the results there. And then you can even see a question about, what would make you feel more heard? Oh, I have to remove my my cut here. There we go. Okay. So what we feel, and then of those, the question about feeling more heard, you can see a sentiment here. So you can see of the 106 people who answered this question, about 14% are feeling negative, or 14%, so 22% are feeling about negative or mixed about that. And then when I filter down to those, you can see people are feeling distrust, caution, unsure, dissatisfied. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, and then here's just a simple word cloud, right? So look, I'm seeing here that of this group, people are concerned about wait time, about stress, about their health, their doctors. This is just simple NLP doing this. Okay, so that's helpful, but what would be more helpful is actually looking into having AI figure this out for you. So what this does is this actually, you can see that that our AI automatically categorizes all answers for all open-ended questions here for you, right? So this is broken down into categories like time and attention, active listening, personalized care, communication. So I can decide to even go into time and attention, more time with doctor. That's interesting. 11 people talked about that. Let's click into there. All right, and then you can see here a person saying, monthly checkups with an independent doctor and discuss any issues that you have with your health. Ask for resolution and solve your issues. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder who this is. This is an 80-year-old male from Florida who's relatively low income, who enjoys going hunting, and he's a Republican. Okay, and then you can actually see here's all the answers to his questions. Okay, this is a real human being who answered these questions. And then as I scroll down, you can actually see some of these additional questions right here at the bottom, which is, and these questions here, these were both generated and answered by AI. Okay, so essentially what our platform did is knowing all the information we know about this human being, which is about 40 to 50 data points that were all collected by our platform about him. It's able to then go into our own historical clustered database and find similar humans, or similar answers that are adjacent, and to be able to better inform our model to answer these additional questions about how this person would answer. So this, in a sense, this is synthetic. This is in a sense, a digital twin answering these questions right here. Okay, so this is like a brand new area that of our platform that's being utilized across teams in marketing innovation, especially. They're finding it very, very useful to get to nuanced audiences and hard to reach audiences, and be able to really speed up their cycles of discovery and so on. All right, so that's kind of like, oh, and then sorry, to take that a bit further, and then here I can decide to essentially activate this person and ask them additional questions, right? And this is essentially created a digital twin of this 80-year-old guy, right? And I can decide to ask him additional things. So here we're saying, would check-ins more often than once per month help, in your opinion? And then here you go, you can see these saying that yes, having check-ins more often than once per month would certainly help. What about digital Zoom calls? There you go, you can see. So you can ask whatever questions you want, and this works really, really good for ideation, for gut checking things with these digital versions of these human beings. All right, so you can see we have all these other areas here. We have summaries. We have, at the top here, we have the summary of the entire study, right? So we have this new agent here as well, right? You can see here's some of the different areas that we can do. And these are just a handful of them. I can automatically have it, categorize all my open ends, right? So automatically will code all your open ends for you here, but by clicking on submit, right? That's a new area there. I also have the ability to have it create, question summaries if I want to, or study summaries automatically. So just some really cool shortcuts that are being enabled through this use of this, agentic technology that we're rolling out. All right, so let's get into AI conversations. Okay.
Can I add one thing, Neil, quickly? The emotional analysis you guys have, I have found really helpful too, because sometimes people's words and descriptions of how they're feeling about something haven't always matched the emotions they're attributing to it. And so we found like gaps in their communication that have helped us craft campaigns slightly differently to really get to what they're feeling versus how they're describing the issues in particular. So that's why I love that sentiment analysis tool.
Yeah. So I didn't show this, but one of the things that our platform does a bit differently than other platforms is in terms of the sentiment analysis is that, and the emotional analysis is that we actually, as we're fielding surveys and we're asking an open-ended question, we're actually going back to the respondent and saying, now that you've answered this question, how does that make you feel? And then they're picking from a list of 28 different emojis. Essentially, they're self-categorizing their emotions, and they can select more than one, which also it ends up giving them a true, almost like a system one approach of like allowing them to show how they're feeling, after they've typed out the response. Human beings are complex; they often feel more than one emotion, and that really shows in that level of nuance that we're reporting and what I showed you in those charts. So you can see here's a chat with the audience. We narrowed it down. Well, this is all 106 people who took the survey. Of course, we can narrow this down to different subpopulations or different subsegments of the population to create digital versions of a segment, right? So if I want to narrow this down to young females who suffer from a certain ailment, right, and ask them questions, no problem. I can do that within this area right here. All right, so we've actually even done that here. We asked about a question: is there a difference between how chronically ill and generally healthy people respond to the survey? And you can see here that the answer is generally yes, so feeling respected, right? 83% of those with chronic conditions preferred the message, you know your body best. We're here to support what works for you, compared to 95% of healthy respondents. And you can see that shows here in the chart here that automatically is added into here, right? And you can see that other charts are automatically embedded in line to our chat here. Tell me more about healthy people, right? And again, you can see it brings me the results dynamically as it reads all of the charts that have been automatically pre-processed that get inserted automatically into our chat here, okay? And of course, I can decide to ask whatever questions I want in this area, all right? So that's a very, very commonly used area of our platform, all right? Now, next, what I might want to do is I might want to analyze more than one data set, right? So I can do that by going into this chat with data area, all right? You have the ability to not just pick studies, but I can also pick files, right? So I can decide to put in, whatever studies I want to, right? I can decide to, add in a number of different studies here. I also have the ability to add in files themselves, right? So then this gives us the ability to combine, not can be 1, 2 studies, can be 10 studies, can be 20 studies. And you can also combine it with as many files as you want. And this puts it into one common repository. Again, it's private to you. Doesn't get used to train any other area of the platform, right? It's private to you, private to your company. And then you can use our platform to analyze the data that's there. And you can also use it to bring it to life to create more intelligent versions of digital twins that I showed you there. All right, so why don't we look at that? So we have in this case, we have an example here. We have 2 studies that we've grouped together. All right, one is called patient-centered communications research. That's the one I just showed you. And another one is living with diabetes, your experiences and needs. Okay. And then we have 4 files here that have also been combined together into this one common area. All right. So first question I asked is, please list all the studies and files in our collection. Gives me a description of each one of them. Of course, for the files themselves, I can see the information. This is a PDF called Safeguarding Patient Trust in the Age of AI, Tackling Health Misinformation with Explainable AI. Of course, I can view it. It shows me the file here, right? And then has links directly to my actual files or studies themselves. I can click into them, and it brings me back to the actual studies themselves. So first question I asked, what communication channels ranked highest in our surveys versus external files, and where do they diverge? Again, you can see the answer here, from the surveys and files in the collection. The findings on communication channels preferences are as follows. You can see, the results themselves talking about inpatient-centered communication research. 95% of respondents preferred new treatment information to be communicated via doctor's recommendations with the a supporting chart here. All right. And of course, again, it's answering the same question about your files, and then divergence. The surveys emphasized trust in HCP-driven and traditional channels. In contrast, external files like those on AI signify a trust signal shift towards integration of platforms, transparency, and combating misinformation. And of course, you can decide to dig deeper and deeper and deeper if you wanted to. All right. And then simply asking the question based on both surveys, what barriers are most cited around trying new treatments, and what types of messaging have proven successful in overcoming them. Again, you can see the answers to questions, providing citations to different questions, across different studies. Right?
And I'll just put a plug in here that we did use really general questions for this to appeal to everyone in the audience. And so when you're crafting these for your own brand and the story that you're telling, you would have much more specific questions, which can help sort of dissect the audience more. So I'll just also put a plug in for that, but tailoring the questions to your audience and, you know, what you're trying to learn will be so great to get deeper data.
Great. And that's a good timing because that is just a very, very quick preview. I realized I moved at lightning speed and I went through a lot. I wanted to show just small areas of the platform, but hopefully that gives you guys an idea as to some of the cool things that we work on, especially with Marianne. So thank you.
So we've just got a couple more slides, and then after we get through those, we'll see if there's any particular section the audience would like to go back to and sort of what other things pop up. So, you know, what does this look like for a new cadence with market research instead of sending all of your materials into a black box for essentially 6 months and then waiting to hear? We think of it as coming up with a hypothesis. So what are the different things that you want to look at? How do you want to test that? Doing what could be considered a micro test. So either putting in creative visuals, just messaging, there's a lot of flexibility with the platform. And so you could put in a couple banner ads if you wanted, instead of doing A/B testing in market, depending on what your budget is. And then we get into a build phase where we're looking at what all the materials are going to look like. And within that phase, we can go back and adjust. We can do smaller test runs as well to see how we're switching the language amongst either smaller audience segments or materials in general. So depending where things are showing up. And then we ship that out. And then the tune-up comes once you have some in-market data that we can layer into that original data set and adjust based on how people are actually responding in market and real time to the materials that you're putting out. And so what that data informed build looks like, this is our general approach, but you can really customize this at every level for your needs. So we like to come up with that messaging foundation. So what are the tone insights we've gathered from your audience? And then how are we going to work those into messaging systems and your brand voice guidelines? So how are you going to be showing up across the different platforms? And then we get into that campaign architecture. So what are the hierarchies and how is your campaign showing up based on the research findings in different channels? So, you know, is your website going to have slightly different content than a banner ad, for example? And so that's where we get into the channel optimization. And there could even be email campaigns or patient portals where you're really breaking out two different audiences. So especially if you're B2B, there may be one audience and then a sub audience beyond that you're talking to. And then the rapid testing. So we can run quick messages and validation tests before we launch those bigger campaigns, just to see how they're going to respond. And so even doing a study as small as 100 people can really give us some insights, but you can go much larger depending on the spend and the investment that you're putting behind something to make sure that you're getting enough input from a wide range of people to feel confident in what you're doing. Then the other thing that I really love is if you have a KOL list or an advisory board, even just an email list of different subscribers to a platform or business element that you're selling, you can audit that email list yourself. So you can send out a wide scale email, and the way the platform shows up on the browser is the same once you click through an email. So you are getting data directly from your own audience and making sure that it's going to resonate with them long term. So it's nice to do ongoing research, and essentially you can build a small advisory board within your own data set and your own audience. And so, of course, we'll share the recording of this and the deck out afterwards. But if you would like to see more, we would love for you to book a demo. And we can talk about some more use cases of things that you can do with your data. Let me check the time. So we still have 15 minutes. So would love to cover questions. If there's anything that anyone wants to jump back to or dive into a little bit more, we can cover that. really thank you all for being here today.
Awesome. So we got a few questions in the chat. The first one is, in addition to market research and surveys, does Panoplai have capabilities to do product or UX research, thinking about web experiences for patients as well?
Yes, is the answer. We have we've done a whole bunch of user testing research with a number of different types of clients. So short answer is yes, we absolutely have that capability and would love to talk further about it.
Awesome. The next question is, what is your underlying AI and how do we keep our survey information from not helping the LLM models that you are using to produce similar surveys for other companies? How do you
I've never
help
heard that
us
question
protect
before. Sorry. Yes,
yeah.
it's probably one of our most common questions. And the short answer is, so when we create these repositories that essentially belong to you, they belong to you only. It means that they don't train other areas of our platform, and so that's absolutely true. They're private to you. We're in the final stages of SOC 2 compliance, which means that we go through very, very strict privacy and security requirements and had to jump through a lot of hoops to get that. And so we take privacy very, very seriously. In terms of what LLMs we're using a number of different ones. Of course, we partner with the big guys, OpenAI, and I believe we're now using certain models in Gemini, but then we also have a number of different self-hosted models that we're also using internally as well. Right, so we're trying to use the best and brightest in terms of the different LLMs. But again, all the data that is processed in our platform is processed independently of the LLMs. The raw data themselves are actually processed outside the LLMs in our platform in a private area, and then it's only the processed data that gets shared, or the processed essentially, vectors essentially of information that gets shared with the LLMs. That's really important as well. All right. I can talk about this for hours, to be honest, but I think that hopefully should answer the question.
And then there's one more question. We answered it a little bit in the chat, but maybe you can elaborate on it a bit more. Someone asked, I work with clients in enterprise tech and healthcare. How does the platform do with verticals outside of healthcare?
It does really, really well in verticals outside of healthcare. We work in a number of different areas. Our biggest client right now, I'll be transparent, is HubSpot, who's the marketing automation company. They are obviously in the B2B space, so we do a ton of B2B research for them, gathering information, gathering opinions from marketers, from sales professionals, and so on. We also do a ton of consumer work. So some of our bigger clients on the consumer side are some of the world's largest food manufacturers, and alcohol manufacturers as well. So we do a lot of work in many, many different industries.
Yes, and my experience working with them actually started outside of healthcare. So just so happens that it also works really great for healthcare. All right. What other questions can we answer? All right. Well, thanks so much. We'll send this out. And if anyone would like to book a call, we'd love to chat with you and figure out how we can help you. Oh, is there another question?
I just see a question here. We need larger data sets to compare our platform users to others within sub data sets. Maybe, okay, yeah. So yeah, that's absolutely something we do. We compare large data sets all the time. So no problem there. So yeah, and then another person saying, I guess the same person saying, we are about to do a large sets of surveys within Zoho. Yes, we can compare large data sets of 500 people each from Zoho, no problem. Right, so I'd love to still talk about that. All right, Thanks, everyone. Really nice meeting you all. Hopefully this was
Thank you.
informative.